Good afternoon, good morning, good day, depending on where you're listening from. Welcome to Profit and Beauty. Now, this show was created for salon owners who have decided to start running their salons like a business rather than a hustle. The focus of the show is to help salon owners understand the numbers behind their business so that they can grow and make extraordinary profits. Without this knowledge, it's really hard, if not impossible, for your salon to reach its true potential. My name is Desiree Anderson, and I have 19 years experience as a hairstylist and salon owner. I currently work as a certified public accountant, working mainly with salon owners and hairstylists. My background as a former stylist and salon owner gives me a much better understanding of what our industry professionals need and desire. So if you are a hairstylist or salon owner interested in running your salon like a business, then this show is for you. On the other hand, if you are a hairstylist or salon owner not interested in running your salon like a business, this show may or may not be for you. I just hope you keep listening, and maybe something you hear in one of the episodes will make you decide to turn your craft from a hustle into a business that you can scale and grow. So sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Profit and Beauty. Now, as you all know, on this show, I usually discuss business topics concerning the beauty industry. But for my last show of the year, I'm taking a left turn and discussing a topic that has absolutely nothing to do with business. Join me and my guest, Sileta Hodge, as we discuss her brand new book entitled Get Over Him in an Hour. The book was inspired by a personal relationship that she experienced in her past life. The show was originally recorded live on Facebook. Enjoy! So I met Sileta through Scores. Now, Scores is an organization here in Atlanta. Actually, they're all over the United States, but it's a volunteer organization. So we volunteer we help small businesses with their business, so to speak. I normally volunteer on the tax, financial, and accounting side. She volunteers on the writing side and also business plans, and I'll let her tell you about that.
Right.
Anyway, so Sileta, right?
Yeah. You got it.
I have to read this part. Sileta is the founder of the Bell Community Consultants, a nonprofit organization aimed at helping local communities in and around the Atlanta area to thrive. Okay. She is also a fierce advocate for abused women. In addition to all of that, Sileta just penned her brand new book entitled Get Over Him in an Hour. Okay. She describes the book as the therapy every woman needs to jumpstart their healing process. Hi, Sileta.
Hi.
Thanks for agreeing to be a guest on today's show. So can you tell the audience a bit about yourself and what inspired you to write this book?
Okay, great. I think you covered a lot, so I don't want to, as Desiree mentioned, we work together in the capacity where we both volunteer with SCORE Atlanta, helping small businesses within the community to, I'm going to use the word thrive and get themselves out there and kind of give them that push using our expertise and our knowledge. Now, the book, this is the reason why we're here. The reason I came out with that book, so Get Over Him in an Hour, a lot of people ask, first of all, who are you trying to get over? What's going on, Sileta? Are you going through some stuff? Okay. And I think all of us, even if we're not going through some stuff, we have went through some stuff. Okay. Exactly. And some of the times we carry on that stuff with us for years and we drag it. And then it comes out at a time that you just didn't predict. And it's just like, wait a minute, I thought I dealt with this. But what made me write that book? So I guess I'll be a little honest with you guys.
That would be nice.
I can't calculate the exact time, but some time ago I was dating, and I use the word dating because I feel like a lot of people, especially in the Western culture, don't understand what dating mean. So for dating, for some is we met today, you're my boyfriend tomorrow, and we get married the next day. Dating for me is interviewing. You're interviewing, just like if you're hiring someone, okay, for your business, you go through an interview process. You don't just go with the first person that walks through the door. You interview and you get to know people. And, the reason you're able to date, because, and this is why some people have it twisted, is because they don't know themselves. So they don't even know what they're looking for. Just like with a job interview, you have a job description, you know what you're looking for in someone. So if you don't really even know yourself, then you really shouldn't be dating in the first place. You really need to get to know yourself first. So in the dating process, you're interviewing people and you're saying, he's a good person, but I know myself, this won't work for me. She's great, but I know myself, this won't work for me. And you're being honest with yourself. You're not just going by feelings alone or how someone looks, but you're also taking into consideration, who am I and what is going to make me happy? And does this person make a match? You're not trying to change anybody. You're just trying to say, wait a minute, we flow together. We can go together. So while I was in my dating process, I was getting to know this young man who I was very, is enamored the right word? I don't know. I was really into him. And
Infatuated, maybe?
Infatuated. Maybe that's the word. There you go. Thank you. Very infatuated. And I was really hoping it would go to the next level. And then when that conversation came up, I realized that he didn't feel the same way. And so he didn't really want it to go in that direction. And that, for me, the moment I found that out in a conversation, it was so devastating. I wasn't expecting it. And I remember we got off the phone call, and I remember saying to myself, oh my God, this is going to hurt for like some time. Okay. And I remember also, you froze up for a little bit, Desiree. So hopefully you're not like, but I remember also.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Vlad. Hey, thanks for joining. And Periscope, love you guys. Thanks for joining. Facebook, everybody, thanks for coming on. So I remember saying to myself, oh my God, this is going to hurt for some time, because I was really hoping this would go in the next direction. It's not like I was led on, but he was very honest, and I appreciate him. And guess what? We're friends today. But I remember when it first hit me that it wasn't going to go anywhere, I remember saying, this is going to hurt for some time. Then I looked at the things on my plate, and I'm like, I was in the middle of writing my first book at that time, and I had an upcoming release date. I also had so many other things going on. And I remember saying to myself, wait a minute, Sileta, you've got a lot of stuff to do. You can't let this hurt you. You have 1 hour to get over this situation. Okay. Get over it. Accept it for what it is. You have 1 hour, because you, my girl, have a lot of stuff that you got to do, and you cannot be bothered by it. But the real question is, and I'm sure a lot of you might be asking this, can you really get over someone in an hour?
No.
Okay, thank you. Because some people, and on my Periscope, some of you, the situation you might be dealing with is a marriage, 10 years of a marriage, 20 years of something. Okay. And the thing is, it doesn't take an hour to get over these things, but you only need 1 hour to make your mind up. In fact, you really need less than an hour to make your mind up. I think an hour is a bit much. Okay. But, and someone said a man can, but not a woman. A man can get over, sometimes you have to, life is just too short. Someone said, okay, so someone says a man can, but a woman can't. But it's a mindset thing. So that kind of like gives you some insight onto what led me to write the book.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I read some of the first chapter of your book.
Uh-huh.
It seems like you, now this person you're talking about, was this a man that you married, or this was a boyfriend?
No.
Okay, so after reading your book, or rather the first chapter of your book, you spoke about, I guess, a situation that you were in that was part, and I'm wondering, is that part of the reason why you also wrote this book? Because of, forget about well, let me go back to this, okay? When you said that we should pick our boyfriends or our husbands, based on certain criteria, that is absolutely true, okay? But usually it takes time, age, and wisdom to get to that point. Because I remember when I was younger, I don't want to say I'm vain, but I kind of am. I was interested in guys based on how they looked. Now, it wasn't just how they looked, but that was the first thing that attracted me to a guy, was how he looked. And of course, everything came after the fact. Now, the good thing about me was I was able to, within 3 months, make the determination whether or not this was going to work. And one thing I learned early in life was that you can never change a person. You can't change people. So you have to just say, okay, if you're going to date someone, let's assume you have your little list, like we all do. We have our checklist.
Yeah.
it gets smaller and smaller as you get older. That checklist definitely starts to shrink because reality starts to set in, right? But when you're younger, you have this checklist and you start checking, is he this, is he that, check, 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 check. And I came to the conclusion that, look, if you have a checklist and he doesn't meet one of those specifications, and you decide to date him anyway, don't try to change that aspect. You have to realize that, okay, I am accepting him for all of what he is, and I'm going to accept that part of him. Don't go in there and try to change things. And that's one of the things that I noticed that women do. And being a former hairstylist, working in a hair salon, a lot of times on a Saturday morning, we talked about, our relationships, our boyfriends, our husbands, and just certain things. And I was always the one that was considered the one that took a cold blanket and just threw it over everything, because I was so real. I was just real. Okay. I looked at things from a very realistic standpoint and not through, rosy, I don't know, glasses or whatnot.
Right.
So while people are saying, well, he did this to me or he did that, you feel their pain. Okay. And, people say, oh, you can do better, or don't worry about it, or he didn't mean it. And I'll say, well, men are not complicated. They tell you exactly where they're coming from. Whether
you hear that, men are not
I would say that men only, well, and this, I'm not man bashing, right? But I'm just saying men usually want two things. I say feed them and them.
Oh God.
Usually,
says she's right. She's right.
Men are just simple. They're really simple. They're not complicated. We complicate things. And so basically, don't try to. And if a guy wants you, you're pretty much going to know. And they let you know, but then we try to fit them into what we want. Right. Okay. And that doesn't usually work out well. But all that being said, I read the first chapter of your book, and it seemed to me that the book was somewhat premised on the relationship that you had with your ex-husband, and that he said he was abusive and an alcoholic as well, and you stayed with him sort of longer than you thought you should. Now, before you answer that, I would say that's really, really interesting, because after meeting you and just knowing you, I would never have thought that, right? I would never have thought that.
I don't look like what I've been through.
I know, it just goes to show you that you don't know people, and abuse, we don't really know, who is the abuser or who is being abused, just based on our day-to-day conversations or just looking at a person until you really get to know them, or unless they tell you. So tell us about that, how you hit it, how you dealt with it, and how you got out of the relationship.
Okay, that's a good question. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is I said earlier, what prompted me to write that book was in that moment when I felt hurt, embarrassed, my ego was hit, whatever. I was like, oh my God, I have a lot of stuff to do. I have an hour to get over this situation. I told myself that. So then I started knowing me. I believe in the power of now and doing things in the moment. So I was like, oh my God, this is a book. I'm going to write a book. I thought I was going to write a book about this person who hurt my feelings. And so I started writing, and then I put the book aside. And then last year, 2017, or earlier this year, I was like, you know what? I have so many things I've written. I'm going to publish something this year. And I said I was going to publish the book, Get Over Him in an Hour. And it was at the moment that I decided to publish it, I brought in the God factor. So I said, well, God, what do you think about this? Really, I should have asked God what he thought about it before I wrote it. Because when I invited God in, God said, well, you did all that work on this book. And if you're going to bring me in, I'm going to tell you what to do with the book. You're going to have to rewrite the book. So I thought I was releasing the book February. And God said, well, if you're going to bring me in, we're going to actually write this book. So I was like, wait a minute, this is way more work than I wanted to do in the first place. And so here I am. And then God started showing me things, and I went on that journey. And what he started showing me was this book is not about that person. You have a lot of things that you've gone through that you haven't dealt with, that you haven't fixed. So chapter 1, I speak about my ex-husband, but he is not what the book is about. As a matter of fact, God started speaking to me, and he said to me, and I'm going to get to the part with getting out of it, but I just want them to understand this book is not about him. He gets a mention in chapter 1 here and there throughout, but it's not about him. What God said to me was, there are 8 women who are going to be healed from this book, 8 women and 8 unique sufferings. And I think I mentioned that in the preface. And one of them, he says, and I'm just going to run through it real quick. The woman who lost it suddenly, all out of the blue, you have this, what you think is perfect, okay, from your perspective. And then suddenly it all comes tumbling down. Then 2, the woman who is stuck in a cycle. Chapter 2 is perhaps the most, the chapter that gave me the most trouble, because then I had to learn about some of these things, the cycles that that we fight with, that we don't even realize that we're in. I discussed things like spiritual husbands, spiritual wives, some terms that a lot of people just never heard of, and they don't realize that these things are affecting them. Chapter 3 is the woman tied to a generational curse. When I was writing this book, it hit me that wait a minute, you didn't even realize it, but your grandmother wrote a book. And your grandmother was abused. She was stabbed, I want to say 8 times by, my grandfather years ago. And she wrote a book on domestic violence. And I was like, wait a minute here. I didn't even realize, here I am. And it's like, so chapter 3 is the woman stuck in a generational curse. Chapter 4, the woman without provision. A lot of times women are stuck in the position they are in because they're not necessarily, and I'm not saying all women, there are more independent women these days, but some women are stuck because they don't have the provision to leave. Okay, and they don't realize what's out there in the community for them. So chapter 5 is the woman in the wrong. This is the chapter that the men are gonna love, because while some men might think this is a book bashing them, chapter 5 is dedicated to the woman in the wrong. I'm talking about the woman who cheated, and the man decided, I don't want to deal with this no more. Because it's not just men who cheat. There are women out there doing stuff that, so it's to the woman who cheated, the woman who's not ready. And the man is saying, wait a minute, this is not what I'm looking for. This is not what I want. I could deal with certain things, but I need a woman who can cook. Or I'm not saying that's, I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Or I need a woman who can do this. I need a woman who can show me that she's going to take care of my children. Because men are surveying their women for that wife. Like, I need a wife. And this is my checklist too. Women have a checklist, men have a checklist. I'm not saying that anybody is perfect, but we at least know those things, whether it's based on cultural values or what have you. So women are not always in the right. So there's the woman in the wrong. I speak to the woman who, the man that she needs to get over is somebody else's husband. Let go of that woman's husband.
Yeah, that was
so
nice.
That's one of the things I wanted to make sure, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of the things I wanted to make sure is I presented something that was well balanced and it wasn't one-sided, because there's so many, and what does get over him mean? There's so many people who need to get over so much things, so much hurt. There's the women who's dealing with daddy issues. Get over it, move on, so that you can get to that place of the land of what I call in chapter 8, a season of milk and honey, because a lot of people are going to miss out. There's the woman who's with the guy, okay? He's the good guy. She finally met him, but then she brought all this pain and all this baggage into the relationship. And he's saying, oh my God, I love you. I want to make this work, but you are the person that's hindering this relationship. You brought these insecurities, and so we can't even move on. I want to marry you, but we can't even move on to that next step because you are holding on to all of this. So that was the essence of it. As far as getting out of, to your question, I know I kind of like stretched that out. To your question, you asked the question of how did I get through that somebody saying on Periscope, preach.
Well, let me say this. Somebody on Facebook definitely made a great point. She said that you can get over a moment in an hour, but not an entire experience.
That's correct.
It's an interesting. She said it's an interesting idea to work on mindset. So that she's so right. So when you say get over it in an hour, she's right. You can get over
mindset.
it. It's definitely It's definitely a mindset. It's mental. I believe that our mind is the most powerful thing we have.
Yes.
If you say it's so, it's so. If
Amen.
you say it's not so, then it's not so. If your mind is telling you that, then that's what it is. So she's definitely right about that.
Correct.
Thanks, Mariette.
What's her name? Liliette?
No, her name is Mariette.
Mariette, that you are so correct.
I love her.
And a large part of the book has to do with mindset, because it's then telling women you have to, because think back to when I said that moment, I said, oh my God, Sileta, you have an hour to get over it. Why did I say that? You want to know why I said that? Because I realized that what I had going on in my life, I was tied into something greater than that moment. I had a book to release at that time that I was writing my first book. I had things to take care of. I could not allow the spirit of depression to come over me. Okay. I couldn't allow that to stop me from the big, and that's what a lot of people do. They don't see the bigger picture. And that's why I have a chapter called there's purpose in your pain. I was originally going to call it This is Bigger Than You. And the truth is, we have to look at the bigger picture. It can't always be about what happened. Okay, this happened, and how am I going to turn those lemons into lemonade? How am I going to do that? So
cool. Okay, so now the title is the title, but then the subtitle is For Such a Time as This. What exactly does this mean?
For such a time as this. So the reason I came up with that, because I wanted women to also consider, and I think someone on Periscope mentioned it, typed it in earlier. Time is so important. I forget what scripture it is where I it's like, Lord, teach me the brevity of life so that I can use my time more wisely. Time is very important. You can lock yourself in with someone, and because you decided to marry someone that you knew inside your spirit that you weren't supposed to marry, but then you went ahead and you locked yourself in for 10 years, and now you look back, and a lot of women do this. We look back and we're like, whoa, that's 10 years of my life. I'm not saying you didn't learn things, lessons, and you didn't grow, but 10 years of your life. So I want women to consider purpose. Before you even met this man, or you meet the people that you meet, you have a purpose. You were, one of the things I ask in the book is, what were you doing before you got hit? What were you doing? Because again, this is bigger than you. So for such a time as this, I feel like a lot of times these things happen in our life, one, to move us into the direction that we need to go in. Okay, so some of these things, I feel like, yes, it happened the time that it happened because it was time for you. When I went through what I went through with my relationship, and it was time for me to move on, a lot of things happened. God released my business to me. Okay, when that relationship was over, it was just one thing after the next for me. My business came into line. I was able to focus on that and get that running. He moved me. He was like, I'm moving you to Atlanta. And the chapter 1, I think I talked about this. You're being rerouted. A lot of people, you will find that at when this thing happened, you end up being rerouted, and you end up going in a different direction, because you know what? At the end of the day, destiny, and I don't know how many of you listening believe in destiny, but when you have a destiny, when your life is tied into a destiny, okay, when your life is tied into that, you're going to realize that, wait a minute, I have to pick up the pace. This happened to me, but I have to keep going. In 2016, my mother passed away, and it took me 2 years of mourning. I'm still going through the mourning process, but I remember one day, I got a wake-up call, and God was like, hello, you are overseas, and I have work. I sent you to Atlanta. I have work for you to do in Atlanta. So we need to get you up and going, because you are tied to something that's bigger than you. And so you have a work to do. So I think this comes back to what I said originally. Do you know yourself? Do you know what is in you? Because when you know yourself, and when you know what is in you, you might get hit. You might get hit, but trust me, you're going to come right back up. You're going to come right back up, and you're going to use that pain and see the purpose in it.
Right, and I think that a lot of times people, women, maybe men as well, get stuck in these relationships because you're afraid. You're afraid of the unknown. You know, you've been with a person for several years, and especially as you get older, you start wondering. And as for women, you know, you get older, you start wondering, okay, if I leave this person, I'm getting older. Is anyone else going to want me? Am I still going to be desirable? And then you find yourself wanting to leave at a certain point, and then thinking about it, and before you know it, you look up, 10, 15 years have gone by, and you're stuck in this relationship that, you know, is not fulfilling to you. And I can akin that to business. Same thing. You're at a job, okay, and you want to start your own business, or you're not happy at your job for whatever reason, and you feel like, okay, I'm afraid to leave, because if I leave, I don't know what to expect if I take the chance and just jump out there and start my own business. What if it doesn't work? You start thinking about all the negative things if it doesn't work, but you would never, ever know until you try.
Exactly.
And until you actually release yourself from, whether it be a relationship that you don't think you want to be in, whether it be a job that you do not want to be in, whether it be a business that you don't really want and would prefer to start another one, until you actually make that choice to change it or to, to try something else, you'll never know. And you could be blocking your blessings because
Amen. Yes.
you didn't give it a chance. So yeah, so a lot of what you're saying, I can actually relate to business. I can
Yes.
definitely relate it to business. So in reading this book, it's not really, from what I read, it's like I'm reading it, and yeah, it's you're talking about get over him, but you can take those same concepts and apply them to your personal life. You can apply them to your business life as well as your relationships.
Yes.
Now, one question that I did want to ask you was, now we women tend to choose certain men for whatever reason, whatever the reason may be. So, what do you think? What do you think most women? I should say most women. What do you think some women or goes through some women's minds when they are trying to choose that so-called right partner? What do you think their thought process is?
When they're trying to find the right partner?
When they pick their men. So you have some women that pick a guy because, they say she may have daddy issues, so she's picking a certain type of guy who is maybe more authoritative or controlling. Right. So what are the different, I guess, I don't want to say categories, but different reasons that women pick different types of men or
different types of men? That's a very interesting question, because I was having a conversation. Carl is actually on here yesterday. He's on here now, and I was talking to him yesterday, and I was telling Carl, some women, there are women out there, if we listen to the conversations, the hair salon conversations, there are women out there, they have their list and they have the priority in that list. Okay. For a time, I liked, and I'm going to even throw myself out there. There was a time, if you were not the tallest in the room, and this was a long time ago. I don't think like that. There was a time, if you were not the tallest in the room, I was like, oh, it's so sorry. He's so cute. He's such a nice guy, but he wasn't the tallest. And that's silly. There's some women out there, you have to have the most money. And that's how they choose. They will settle for other things as long as you have the money. And these are the things that we do, and we don't realize how they impact us. So my thing is, if you can look at someone, first of all, someone earlier on my Periscope not long ago says you need to be guided by God. I think we choose based on our cultural background, our level of maturity, our relationships with God, whether or not we believe in God. We have spiritual guidance. Some people are driven by discernment. People go by looks. The same thing with men. I think men mainly go for looks, and then they realize she's pretty, but she has the worst temper ever. And it's like, she's crazy. I can't live with her. I can't deal with her. So I think, yes, we go through different thought processes when it comes to choosing a man, and for every woman, it's different depending on what her mindset is. My advice would definitely be, for one, on the spiritual end, seek God so that he can open your spiritual eyes and you can see. Now, and even saying that, you see people in who are religious, and then I sought God out, and then you wonder, well, what happened with this? They're ministers, or they're this. What happened with their relationship? So you put your best foot forward towards it. But I would advise women, don't look for a man based on how much money he makes. Don't look at a guy based on who's the tallest in the room. I would say definitely you got to put more substance, and you have to really value yourself more, so that you can you're choosing based on who you are as well. Who am I? What's going to make Sileta happy? What's going to make Desiree happy? What is going to make you happy? So there's so many things to balance in there.
Right. And I think that comes over time, and it comes with age, because when you're younger, you're not thinking about, oh, well, let me sit down and be real practical about this. You're thinking about, okay, what is it that I desire? Do I desire a man that has money? Am I trying to live a certain lifestyle? So therefore I'm going to go with that. Or am I looking for, someone who is tall or someone who is good looking? And then as time goes on, if things don't work out, then of course you start to make different choices. Well, most women start to make different choices, but excuse me, but you have some women that just make the same mistakes over and over. They pick the same types of guys over and over again. And then back to what you said, men are visual. Let's face it. I mean, sometimes we get mad. Oh well, look, he's always. Men are visual creatures. They are. If they like what they see, then hey, that's what's going to attract them first, and everything comes after the fact, and that's okay. That's just who they are. A woman, on the other hand, we are more emotional. We're more emotional, and this is just generally speaking, because I know on both sides you can find women who act like men and men that are more emotional and act like women, which I'd
Right.
rather not deal with one of those. But hey, they're out there.
Right.
But so to me, it's just a matter of as you grow matter of fact, as you date, and that's why it's important to date, because in the process of dating, that's when you get to determine or figure out the type of guy that you think you would truly get along with. Like the same person I would have picked 20 years ago is definitely not the same person that I would pick today. Definitely not. But with age, things change.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do you hope to accomplish with this book?
One of the things I definitely hope that this book does is, well, for one, we know the healing. I hope it brings a lot of women to healing. I hope it also points out what I want. When I started writing it the second time around, one of the things I wanted to make sure of was, okay, I showed my story, and I so that you can see, hey, I'm not just telling you this. I've been here. I've been in the abusive relationship. I've been in this situation. I know what that is like. For everybody, it's different. What I hope that it accomplishes, though, is it highlights, because going through the book, it touches it on so many different, especially on domestic violence. Okay. Women who lost their lives for it. One young girl, I didn't know her personally, but I had just met her a week after meeting her. She was shot and killed, shot in the head, killed. Her mother was killed. Her husband killed himself after.
Oh, wow.
And this was somebody I met through my ex-husband then, and I was in an abusive relationship. That was his friend. And so, like, I met her, and a week after I met her, he's on the phone, and he got a phone call, and he's crying. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, her husband shot her. I'm like, whose husband shot them? And then you realize, while I was at her viewing, it was a closed casket because she was shot in the head. Her mother was shot in the head. The little child that was there had to run out of the house.
Wow.
And so I want to point out, like, take these things seriously. Someone says they're going to kill you. Don't wait to find out if they're going to kill you, because then it's going to be too late. Someone shows sign of possibly being abusive or anger issues. You may want to step away from that. Maybe encourage them. Go ahead and get some anger management. Encourage them to get help if you can. But if you can leave that alone, walk away from it. I'm hoping that there's a man out there that will probably write "Get Over Her" in an hour, and talk about. And if you realize too, in chapter 1, I don't just talk about my ex-husband. I talk about how his problem with whatever, and my anger was not a good combination, because at that time I was very angry too. So it's not just him. I was a very angry person, and so I had to deal with a lot of that anger. So I hope the book forces us to look at ourselves, look at what we want, look at our purpose, look at who we have in our lives, not just look at the different relationships in our lives, our relationship with God, our relationship with our husbands, our wives. I don't want anybody to lose their relationship. I'm for a relationship. I'm just saying, let your relationship accelerate you. Don't let it bring you down, to the ground, because that's when you have to let go of it. So I'm hoping that it brings healing. I'm hoping that it inspires a man to write Get Over Him. You got to consult with me first, though. Okay. Get over her, sorry, in an hour. But more than anything, healing. I pray that it brings healing to a lot of women, and it highlights. And one of the things too that I talk about, I add a lot of research in there, because people don't realize that domestic violence, for instance, it's tied into so many different things. For instance, there's a story in there, and I'm not going to tell the book, but there's a story in there that I mentioned about this young lady. She was in a relationship that was more so verbally abusive than anything, and she knew that it was just not something that she should have been in, and she stayed. And what happened with her is she ended up contracting HIV because he was sleeping around. So it's not just about somebody who's abusing you. You have that instinct. You see the red flags. Start taking heed to those warnings because you don't know what's coming next. Okay, you might stay with a man that's cheating, or men, you might stay with a woman that's cheating. And because you know what, I can't do better than this right now, and this is just it. I'm just gonna wait until he grows up. But guess what? You might be paying the bigger consequences because that young lady in that case, she ended up contracting HIV. And that in itself, I hope that I reached out to her and I'm hoping to even work with her in some capacity. And I'm hoping that she releases her story because that's such a touching story, but God turned it around so beautifully. But is that how you want to learn your lessons though? Just if the relationship is not serving you and it's not helping you, you need to move on because that's not what God intended for you. He has a bigger and better plan for you. So
okay, so with what you know now about relationships based on your personal experiences and also based on not just your personal experiences, but based on the experiences of the people around you, because sometimes we don't necessarily have to learn from us tripping up. We can learn from the people around us, okay, not to make the same mistakes. So what would yourself today tell your younger self of yesterday?
The first thing I would do if I could meet my younger self is slap her. Okay, I would go back and I would slap her and say, "What are you doing?" And I would slap, and I think I don't know if I mentioned it I might have written it and deleted it. I don't know if I left it in there, but I would go back and I would I'm going to write it. Okay, someone said they're gonna write the male version of it. I would go back and slap her, even on the day that I got married, because I knew that this was not a situation, and I was young. I think I was 22 or 23 when I got married. Some people get married much younger, and I knew even the day of exchanging the vows, I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just say? What am I doing? This is not the person for me." And I knew it. And I remember when we walked away, we were pronounced husband and wife. One of the things that came to me is, "You are going to pay for this big time."
Let me ask you a question really quickly. Was he older than you, or were you guys about the same age?
He was, around the same age. He was 2 years older.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, I would go back and I would slap her and say, "Girl, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And I don't know what else to say to her. That would be it. Shake her up a little bit. Okay. Like, hey.
Okay, so and my final question is, basically, what's next for you? And do you think you're going to have another book? Is there going to be a sequel to this one? Or do you want to see how this one does first before you start thinking in the future? What are the plans? What are your plans?
So definitely for Get Over Him in an Hour, I am currently working on a follow-up healing course for women, because as the young lady, I think Martinez, you said last name,
Marie.
If I don't stop getting her name wrong.
I can't get your name right. I keep calling you Sileta.
Okay. One of the things I definitely want to follow up with is a healing course for women, an 8-day healing course for women that follows up to this book. Like I said, there are 8 different healings that I'm addressing in this book, and I feel like women they don't have to go through the entire course, but they can choose parts of it that they know that they're struggling with, and be a part of this. To the question of, am I working on a follow-up? I am always, let me tell you, right now I'm in 2020. I'm working, I already started my 2020 book. Next year, I'm looking to release 2 books. I can't share the titles as yet. As I was writing Get Over Him in an Hour, it dropped in my spirit, "You're going to write this book." And I was like, hold up, let me get this out of the way because this is a bit much. But I've already started getting drops and little nuggets of the book and who it's for. And this one is, there's so many different things. I'm also releasing my first Christian novel. And I shouldn't really just say Christian novel, but I'm releasing a novel that's not about the erotic and all this stuff or whatever, but it's more like life lessons in a novel. I think we need more of that. So yes, I am looking to release about 2 to 3 books for next year. So yes, I'm already on it. So
cool. Okay, well, Sileta, there you go. Called you Sileta.
That's okay.
I think I have I don't know why I keep calling you that. Anyway, there's no H in your name, so I'm not quite sure.
No, there's no H.
Yeah. All right, Sileta, I'd like to thank you for being a guest on today's show.
Thank you for bringing me
on. I know we're going to be seeing each other again sometime next year or so. We'll be working together and doing some things together.
Uh-huh.
And I can definitely say that all of the information that you provided today can definitely be taken and applied to business, because this
Yes.
is normally a business podcast. So even though we didn't really speak about business, so to speak, you can definitely apply a lot of the lessons that you talked about to your business.
Absolutely.
So again, I'd like to thank you for being a guest on today's show and say bye-bye.
Bye. And guys, listen, before we hang up, I'm like taking over her show now, okay?
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead, take over.
Those of you listening through Easy Webinar, go ahead and hit the download button. You'll get a version of chapter 1. That is not the final version. I have since edited it. So, I mean, so you might see little things here or there that, like, hey, there's a little grammar error or something like that. But I already did the final edits. But you can go ahead and download chapter 1. The book releases on December 27th. And those of you listening on Periscope or Facebook, you can email me. I don't know.
Actually, if you're on Facebook, I left the link to the download.
Awesome.
So you can actually download it.
Awesome.
I left the link, so it can be downloaded from Facebook.
Desiree is 10 steps ahead of me. So you guys can go ahead and download it. The book releases the 27th. Thank you so much, guys. And I definitely pray and hope that it blesses you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And I'll talk to you all later. I'll see you guys next year in 2019, where I will be talking about business, accounting, tax, all the stuff that you love so much. I know you do, even though you try to act like you don't. So I know you guys love it and love me for it. So I'm gonna be bringing that back beginning of next year. And so until then, have a wonderful Christmas and an even better New Year's. And I'll see you guys in 2019.
Oh my God, I'm excited about it.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Sileta Hodge. You can download a free copy of Chapter 1 of her book at profitandbeauty.com in the notes area of episode 16. And I'll see you all in 2019.